Rather, the Joker is simply an extremely consistent nihilist, meaning that he's someone who believes that there really is no such thing as right or wrong, and that life has no real purpose or meaning. Indeed, the Joker is just someone who acts as if the things that Richard Dawkins and other atheistic naturalists say are true really are true.
You're convoluting the conversation by acting like this is the only outcome of not accepting that absolute morals exist. This would be a false dichotomy because he's making a distinction that either absolute morals exist or you act like the Joker. The Joker has his own subjective moral foundation, even if that moral foundation is that morals don't exist and that he can do whatever he wants. I also use my own subjective moral foundation to say that this is very wrong and can lead to some really bad situations. There is absolutely no need for absolute morals.
Again, think about it. The Joker does what he wants. He does not worry about such pedestrian things as morality or the whims of society. He sees no good or evil. He just sees particles in motion. Thus, he does not let society or anything else control him or tell him what to do. He makes his own purposes, and if that includes hurting other human meat machines, who cares?
Right, that's what it means to be a sociopath and or a psychopath. These mental disorders exist regardless of whether or not a God exists. There are Christians right now that are both of those things. I mean, just take a look at David Wood. He's a self-professed psychopath and a Christian. You also don't need God in order to manage this mental disorder.
Ultimately, he won't be punished for it. It's not even genuinely wrong in the Joker's eyes. It's just different. After all, on the worldview brought about by atheistic naturalism, why is another person's desire to avoid pain any more important or moral than the Joker's desire to inflict that pain?
Well, that would be where my subjective morality comes into play. I can subjectively say that the Joker's desire to inflict pain on others is wrong. And this would be due to my upbringing and also the fact that we live in a society where that shit's not tolerated. It doesn't have to be objectively or absolutely wrong in order for it to be wrong. Wrong in and of itself is subjective.
In the end, it's not. In fact, as nature shows us, the Joker's violence is both natural and extremely consistent with an evolutionary existence that favors power and survival.
Skirt! Gotta stop you right there, bud. That is not related to evolution or survival of the fittest. In the concept of survival of the fittest, it's not always the strongest organism that wins out. It's whichever organism is best adapted to survive in the environment that it finds itself in. In this particular situation, the Joker would actually be the least fit to survive. He's a psychopath that's living in a society that regularly quarantines or kills psychopaths. So no, he's not consistent with evolutionary existence.
Note as well that unlike the sullen Batman, the Joker is perpetually happy. He is constantly laughing, and he gains massive amounts of pleasure not only from the pain that he inflicts on others, but also from the way he lives his life in general. His nihilism brings him great joy. In fact, even when he is caught or imprisoned, the Joker is still laughing and joyous. The punishment against him does almost nothing to minimize the pleasure that he takes in living the way he does.
As opposed to what? We've already shown here that this concept of hell is, one, not actually punishing anybody for the immoral actions that they do during this life, and two, is not actually a deterrent that stops people from doing the immoral actions that they're already doing. In this situation, the Joker only has to ask God for forgiveness, pray to Jesus, and accept him as his one and only savior and the only way to get into heaven. And then he's absolved of his sins and he can just pimp walk right into heaven. He doesn't actually suffer any kind of punishment for the immoral actions that he commits.
So, how do all these points undermine atheism and support the claim that a God exists? Because if atheistic naturalism is true, then the Joker, not Batman, is the rational one. Or, at the very least, the Joker is no less rational than Batman is.
Considering that the entire concept of dualism inherent to Batman rests on Batman being the hyper-rational one, it doesn't make sense for you to turn the tables and try to say that the Joker is actually the hyper-rational one, or at the very least that he's just as rational as Batman. The Joker would be on the other end of the spectrum. He's hyper-irrational, and your statement here is an irrational conclusion to come to whether a god exists or not. Joker is irrational because considering the fact that he's part of a society, it's illogical for him to disrupt the order of that society that he definitely benefits from. But ultimately, we are judging both of these characters on our own subjective moral foundations.